Guys, hello, welcome back. Today we're making some bread. Now, full disclosure, I've only ever made bread once, and the recipe that I was following I can no longer find because it was a TikTok recipe and the woman deleted her account. So I think I figured out how I did it. I mean, I had the ingredients written down, but the steps I'm pretty sure I remembered correctly. So the bread that I'm making is just your basic like toast bread, nothing crazy. It's not sourdough. All we're using is instant yeast, so it's very beginner friendly. I'll make sure to link the recipe below, or what I remember from the recipe. And then I'm also going to be making a cinnamon raisin bread, and I'll definitely link that one below as well. So hopefully they both come out good. So first we're going to be making our basic bread, and I already have everything all measured out, but the first thing, which is the most important, is your yeast. Now I just use instant yeast. Got this at Walmart, super affordable. I think you can use the non-instant kind and you'll still get the same results. Now your choice of flour, I'm choosing to use bread flour. You can use all-purpose or cake flour and you will get the same results. Salt, some people prefer to use kosher. I just used regular salt, but both seem very common for bread making. And you will need your choice of oil. I have just been using olive oil. And besides that, all you're going to need is water and salt. I also forgot to mention a scale. You will need a scale because this recipe is measured out in grams. And I'm not the best baker. I'm trying to be better. So I feel like if I can do this, everyone else can too. So, all right, first step, I measured out my instant yeast. Oh, and when you're done with your yeast, you want to put it back in the fridge. So I measured that out, about 9 grams. Again, I will put everything in the description, but 9 grams of our yeast. And our sugar, 12 grams. Now, the sugar and the salt are both kind of up to preference. I just stuck to the amount recommended in the video only because I don't really want to mess with it too much. So we're going to mix our yeast with our sugar. So I have 226 grams of water here, and we only want to use a little bit of this into this mix. We don't want to put it all in there yet, and we do want to warm it up, but you don't want it too warm because if it's too hot, you will kill your yeast. So you just want to test it, and if it feels too hot for you, too hot for the yeast, you want it just to be a little warm. In this part, we're just going to kind of eyeball just a little. That's kind of what mine looks like. And we're going to mix it up. You want to get all the air bubbles out. You can use a whisk if you'd like. I find I like a fork better. And we're just trying to get all those clumps out. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then we're going to let this mix sit for about 15 minutes or so. Now with our basic bread recipe, it's been about 15 minutes. This has gotten slightly poofier and we're good to go. So next we're going to add the rest of the water. 1 tablespoon of oil. Again, I'm using olive. Our salt. And for this, we're going to add most of the flour. We don't want to add it all because we are leaving some out for the end. We're going to give this a good stir. I think I left about like this much last time and I was good. Again, if you need a little bit more at the end, it's not the end of the world to add more. I think I'm going to leave a little less than I did last time just to kind of see. All right, so this is what your bread should be looking like. I'm going to cover it and just set it aside for like 45 minutes. We got to let it kind of sit out. Hello, we're back. It's been about 45 minutes and it's time to look at our dough. So first we're going to start with our basic bread dough. As you can see, it clearly doubled inside, which is good. That's what you want. Still a little sticky. So we have that leftover flour from earlier, and again, if you need to use more, you can. And you also want to make sure that you have a cutting board nearby. I like to sprinkle just a little bit more flour on the board to make it easier. And all we're going to do is throw the rest of that flour on and go from the outside in like this. And I'm already thinking I will likely need more flour, which is fine. You just kind of work that flour in. Actually, I don't think I need more flour. That looks pretty good. We're going to bring it over to our pan. Make sure it's nice and worked in. And I'm just using one of these like normal pan dishes, bread pan dishes, I don't know. And I'm not using any oil in the pan. all you're gonna do is throw it in there. I kind of like to flip it around in there, make sure it's nice and cozy. And then we're gonna let this proof and sit for another like 45-ish minutes. I'm going to start the mix for the cinnamon raisin bread. But we're starting with 10 grams of yeast in here. Then we have 3/4 cup of warm milk. Again, the warm milk and warm water, you don't want it too hot or you will kill your yeast. Next, we have our 3/4 cup water. Looks a little cloudy because it had the milk in it. We're gonna test it. That feels a little too warm, so I am gonna wait. All right. And lastly, for this step, we have 2/3 cup sugar. So clearly more sugar than the last recipe, but this is going to be a sweeter bread. So next, we're gonna whisk everything together, allow it to sit for like 10-ish minutes or so, or until foamy is what it says. So it calls for 3 to 4 cups flour, but recommends you start with 3 cups flour. 2, 3. Next, we're going to combine the spices and salt, and this recipe calls for 1 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon ground ginger, 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg, and that's it. And then we're gonna combine. Now I don't have a stand mixer, and for this recipe it'd probably be a lot easier because it's not as simple as the other one when it comes to actually making the bread, but I don't have one, so. Okay, so we have our flour mix, and again, if you had a stand mixer, this part would probably be easier. We're going to take our yeast mixture. It was foamy, but I kind of mixed it up, so. We're gonna add in our yeast mixture and kind of knead that in. Now you can either use 1/3 cup oil or 1/3 cup room temp butter. I didn't want to deal with having to do butter, so I'm just going to do oil. And then we're going to add this in, same thing, knead this in. And then if you remember from the beginning, it recommended to start with 3 cups of flour. The 4th cup we're going to add in just a little bit at a time into this mixture until the dough is nice and smooth. So we're just going to add a little bit. So it says until the dough is smooth. And like I said, I don't know. I ain't a bread maker, okay? So I don't know. Like, how do you know when this thing is smooth? Because it's definitely sticky. Like, is that smooth? Or should it be smoother? What does smooth even mean? Okay, so I think I'm gonna add a little more. And then it says add in our raisins. So it says that the dough should easily pull away from the sides of the bowl, and it should only be slightly sticky. It should be smooth and soft, slightly sticky. I think this is too sticky, maybe? So it just says to continue to add more flour. Okay, so this looks a lot better. It's definitely pulling away from the sides. It's only slightly sticky. Okay, next you can either use a damp towel like I'm using or saran wrap and cover it, and we're gonna let this sit for an hour. Or proof. I just learned it's called proofing. Don't be like me and be such a messy cook. Now we're gonna kind of do the same thing for the cinnamon raisin bread, but it's a little different. We are going to lightly grease our pan for this one. We're gonna grab our dough and put it on our lightly floured surface. This recipe says to press it into a rectangle, and then if any raisins fall out, press that back in, but my dough is still sticky enough to hold in those raisins. Obviously it doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle, just kind of the shape. And we're gonna roll it into a log. I don't know. And then pinch the seam in. Pinch the seam. I think just like this. I don't know. But I would assume. And this one is definitely a lot bigger. And then it just says to plop that into your lightly greased pan. Okay. That didn't work out as neatly as I thought, but that's fine. We're gonna cover this one again for another 30 to 45 minutes. I'll probably just do both of these at the same time. And I didn't cover this one last time, the basic bread, but I'll just cover both of these with that damp towel. So from here we have our bread proofing, and you want to preheat your oven 350. I don't know that I'm going to cook both breads at the same time, only because I know that's going to change the cooking temp a little bit. I don't know. I might. Maybe. So 30-ish minutes have passed, and you can see they have risen a little bit more. I think I'm going to bake the regular bread first. So I'll keep this one covered. Ah, I almost forgot to score. And we don't want to forget to score our bread. You can score however you'd like. So this was 30 minutes out of the oven. I just use a toothpick and I stab it in different places just to make sure that it comes out clean. Bro, this one just keeps getting bigger. Now that that one's done, we can do our oatmeal raisin. Now this one called for an egg wash. So all you gotta do is just beat 1 egg, and we're just gonna coat it over. I didn't do this with the other loaf, but it did brown pretty well. But this also is a completely different dough, kind of. So I'm just gonna do the egg wash like it says. This loaf also calls for 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, but it does say that if you notice the top starting to brown too soon, then you can just lightly cover it with some tin foil. So I guess I'll just keep an eye on it just to make sure I don't burn it. So I think I will set a timer for 15 minutes to check to make sure it's not browning too quickly, and then I have a timer on my phone for 30 minutes to check at that 30-minute mark, and then I think I should be good. But this bread looks so good. The first time I made it, honestly, it did not look this good. I undercooked it a little bit the first time, so I'm very excited. So it's time to check on the bread, make sure it's not browning too quickly. Ooh, that looks pretty good. And I don't think it's browning too quickly, so I think it's fine. I have let this one cool down, so now we're gonna cut into it and see if I undercooked it or not. Okay, so it looks like it's cooked all the way, but it does feel kind of soft. I'm kind of nervous. I sort of feel like I undercooked it again. Man! Oh, let's see. So I think I slightly undercooked it. Man! So I definitely didn't undercook it as much as I did the first time, but it's nowhere near as dense as it was that first time, but it is still a little soft. It's still good, but it's not perfect. But we're gonna check it. It's at 30 minutes. Let's see. Whoa, baby. Okay, so the 30-minute timer just went off for the cinnamon loaf. The top definitely looks toasty. The top of this definitely looks different since I did wash it with the egg. And it does look a little better. And this one didn't call for scoring, so I didn't do anything to it. So this one, I don't know if the camera will pick that up. It's definitely still a little wet inside. I kind of figured 30 minutes wouldn't be enough time. And to me, this amount of toastiness on the top already looks pretty good. And I don't want to risk burning it, but this needs to finish cooking, so I am going to loosely cover the top. For another 10 minutes. All right, time for the second bread test. Check. still too soft. 12 minutes. Okay, bread check number 3. This bread better be done. Definitely not done yet. Another 12 minutes. All right, bread check 4, I think. Oh, 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 oh. That was clean. We're gonna do another one. Oh, oh, oh. That was a clean toothpick. It's finally done. And yeah, it's a little lopsided, but looks good, no? We're gonna see if I undercooked it or not. I really don't think I did, but I might cry if I undercooked it. Please don't be undercooked. Please don't be undercooked. I'm scared. Oh, that thing's steamy. That's what we're looking at. I don't know. It's still really hot. I can't tell. It does feel a little soft inside, but I don't know if that's because it's still really hot or if it's slightly undercooked, which is still fine. It'll just be more dense. I think it's slightly undercooked. It's also still steaming though, you know? The flavor is really good. Well, even though I slightly undercooked it, it's still edible. The flavor is so good, so I can only imagine when it's properly cooked. And I'm still gonna eat it. So I think I just need to account for the altitude more when I'm baking bread here in Colorado. And that should fix it for next time. And maybe it'll get better as it cools too, so. If you have any bomb bread recipes, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.